This is a true crime discussions channel. We speculate. This is all just speculation. Because it's true crime, it's for mature audiences only. There will be no children allowed, no exceptions. Everything on this channel falls under fair use. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. It's free.
Good afternoon. This is a pop-up live. I will not be able to go live in the morning, so I saw this and wanted to go ahead and do it right now. I might have something else to go over after we watch this. If you are catching the replay, which I'm sure most of you will be, please remember to like it if you like what I do here. Thank you for watching the replay, or thank you if anybody decides to, if anybody's able to pop in. So this is going to be Vinnie Politan Investigates, and he's got some information on the sheriff who shot the judge.
I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the shooting death of Judge Kevin Mullins, a man who was really well-liked and respected by the folks in Appalachia. In fact, the same could be said.
This is going to be Court TV. Vinnie Politan, please give them a like and subscribe.
Of the man accused of murdering him, Letcher County Sheriff Sean Mickey Steins. Here's the story.
Whitesburg, Kentucky is a small rural community of under 2,000 residents in eastern Kentucky, a beautiful place to live nestled in Appalachia. It's the kind of place where everyone knows each other, a place where many folks have both personal and professional connections. And
a place that's able to be rampant with corruption.
Was the situation with the local sheriff, Sean Mickey Steins, and the only judge in town, the Honorable Kevin Mullins, both with great reputations, known especially for their work in trying to help their community battle the opioid epidemic, which is taking so many lives and destroying so many families.
That's a trigger warning. I think I put a trigger warning. If my trigger warning's not up, I do apologize. The drug epidemic is very bad in Appalachia, West Virginia, Kentucky, even North Carolina, just in Appalachia in general. The drug epidemic is like real bad.
Families. On September 19th, the judge and the sheriff grabbed lunch and headed back to the judge's chambers. Once they got there, they went into the judge's office for a closed-door private meeting. What happened next, no one in this small town expected. Reports that the sheriff looked at the judge's phone and then fired his gun several times, taking the life of Judge Mullins. The sheriff then walked into the courtroom, laid down his gun, and surrendered himself. Sheriff Mickey Steins is now charged with first-degree murder, and the community is in collective mourning and absolute shock.
So that's a recap of what happened. We're going to find out by listening to this what some theories are and why people think he did what he did.
So baffling. This story, this situation, like how could this happen? I'm telling you, literally, no one in Letcher County who knew these two men ever imagined that something like this could happen. That the elected sheriff and the judge, there's one sheriff in town, not a big town, right? It's got Letcher County, not a ton of people there. You've got the judge, people know the judge, they know the sheriff, people at the courthouse know both of them, like them, respect them, and they seem to like each other. Yet here we are.
Evidently, somebody found out something that they weren't supposed to know. Hello, Joy. Hello, Stormy Skies. Yeah, that's a good question, Joy. That's been stated because I know they were running some kind of drug program. There's a lot in this case that's just insane. I did do my thoughts and opinions on it in a previous live, and then my husband just sent me this, and so I figured we'd pop it up and go over it.
I want to play for you. This is from the day of the shooting. It's a quick recording, but it's the dispatch recording, and as you listen to the intensity of this situation.
So I haven't heard this yet. This is the 911 audio from when they called to report what had just happened in the courthouse.
This is a courthouse shooting. Let's listen.
3670 Fletcher County Courthouse. That shot's fired on the second floor.
And there's the courthouse. You can see it. And covering this story, investigating this story.
Like, who responded? Okay, well, obviously the police department's going to respond. Okay, that the sheriff is the one who shot him. Did the police department know ahead of time? Is it possible that they knew ahead of time and knew to come in and get rid of evidence, cover things up, help the sheriff out? Because obviously, or more than likely, they're going to be on his side about the situation. Did they know what was going on?
It always comes back and really starts in one place. And it's the question that everyone has. Everyone in Letcher County and around the country. And it's my first question of this investigation. Why? Why would the sheriff shoot the judge? And I think about that question, and I know there's one person who absolutely knows the answer, and that's the sheriff. But we haven't heard from the sheriff. So joining me to help try to pick apart this issue, this extremely important issue, is forensic psychiatrist, trial expert, witness, and columnist, Dr. Carol Lieberman.
I know why it happened. It happened because the sheriff caught the judge doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing, and it bothered him so bad that he shot him. You ask what would bother somebody so bad to do something like that. And some people have said maybe he was messing with his wife. That's not going to typically make you want to shoot somebody. The other possibility is maybe he was messing with his daughter. Now, that is something you might shoot somebody over.
Okay, I want to take this up one piece at a time, okay? One piece at a time. Let's first talk about, this is a man of the law, right? So at the moment he does this, right? That's what he's accused of doing. At the moment he does this, he has to realize all of the repercussions of this, right?
Yes.
Professionally, legally, freedom, his family, all of it.
So it has to be for something that is of ultimate importance for him to basically give his life away for it. I mean, it can't be something, some argument, some sort of trivial argument or something that, I mean,
what is so important that you would give your life away for it? Your significant other is very important. And if somebody was trying to harm them, like as in somebody was trying to shoot your significant other or something like that, you might give your life away for your significant other. But what is so important that you would be willing to shoot somebody and kill them over? Again, you could say your significant other, but if they were cheating on you, it's, in my opinion, you'd just get a divorce. It would suck. Everybody, you'd have a broken heart for a little while, but it would heal. But if somebody's messing with your child, that is something to shoot somebody over, in my opinion. So I'm leaning way more towards the daughter.
it has to be very personal. It's not even something that's, I mean, there's the question of this, the fact he had been deposed for a case. Sabrina Atkins was suing him and this other deputy for raping her and her friend, well, the other inmate. And, so one thing you would, of course, think of is, could it have something to do with, did something come up at the deposition that related to the judge? I mean, the interesting thing is that the rape was in the judge's courtroom. I mean, in the
chambers.
Office,
in the chambers. There's another
place.
Absolutely.
So again, how did it come about that the bailiff that was bringing people over from the jail to the courthouse, how did it become that he was so comfortable in this particular judge's chambers, or in the judge's chambers, to do what he did? Did you have some kind of blackmail on the judge and you said, okay, I'm going to do what I want to do now, since you're already doing what you want to do. And if you don't let me, I'm going to tell everybody. And that's how maybe this happened. That's what I think, because it's been stated that the judge was like a mentor to the sheriff's daughter. So is it possible, using speculation, this is all just speculation, is it possible that the bailiff caught the judge messing with the sheriff's daughter and he said, okay, I'm going to do what I want to do now, or I'm going to tell the judge what you're doing with his child? And the judge said, okay, but you're going to have to do it after hours. And so that's how that started, with all the inmates coming over from the jail. Is that a possibility? I think so.
Let me do this because I'm so glad you brought that up, Dr. Carol Liebman. Joining us by phone is the attorney representing the woman suing Sheriff Steins. Ned Pillersdorf is with us. Ned, thanks so much for being here. Let's get to that issue. It's a few days, right? A few days before the shooting that the sheriff is deposed in your office. Is there anything that comes up? I know you can't talk specifics about it, but from your vantage point, was there anything that came up during that deposition that could have, and I don't want to say the word triggered, but it is triggering the sheriff to take such a drastic action 3 days later?
The deposition was on Monday. The shooting was on Thursday. The deposition was not a friendly affair. I thought Sheriff Steins was very subdued, very depressed, and very non-responsive. But the context of the deposition, I think, is important. This was not taking the sheriff's deputy because one of his bailiffs had been in a car accident. This was a deposition where we made very sweeping allegations that the sheriff's bailiff had basically been coercing women, vulnerable women, people on ankle bracelets or in drug court, to have sex, and all of the sexual incidents occurred in the judge's chambers.
That is the attorney that. Sorry.
How do we know that? Well, the bailiff, he actually pled guilty to doing exactly that. So I would say the subject matter of the deposition was intense. Did it have anything to do with the unbelievable events 3 days later? I don't know. I do know, typically when you take the deposition of a Kentucky sheriff, they're gregarious, they're talkative, they're combative. I would describe Steins as being subdued, depressed. It was a tense deposition. He often hesitated a long time before answering questions, somewhat similar to the video you showed the other night of his arraignment, when he was asked questions and there were these long silences. And I think at one point he didn't even respond to the judge's question, which is unusual. Sheriff is used to court proceedings.
Absolutely. That's an interesting observation. I want to play something else here. This is Mike Watts, the Letcher County Circuit Court Clerk, who spoke with Ashley Banfield on News Nation about what happened when the sheriff was in chambers with the judge just prior to the shooting.
From my understanding, Judge Mullins handed the sheriff his phone. The sheriff looked at both phones. He had two phones one phone in each hand. He reviewed the phones. He laid the judge's phone back down and then stood up.
Did those staffers who
We went over that in my previous live. It's been stated that the sheriff tried to call his own daughter from his phone and then picked up the judge's phone, tried to call his daughter from the judge's phone, and the daughter answered when the judge called. And the contact photo on the phone supposedly really bothered the sheriff. The contact picture that the judge had in his phone for the sheriff's daughter really bothered him. So you have to think about what could possibly bother him. Maybe his daughter in some kind of provocative position or something to that effect. Hello, AHSA. I appreciate you being here. This person says women were being raped in the judge's chambers and somehow he didn't know. I don't buy it. I don't know. It's possible that he didn't know. Because if it was at night when he would be at home with his family, maybe he didn't. But, again, you usually know what your department is doing for the most part. So either way is possible.
Who were in the outside room, outside of chambers, did they report hearing anything prior to the shots?
No argument. No.
And what about just
The photo is just something I've heard. It has not been verified.
conversation? Was there a normal conversation in normal tones prior to the shots?
They couldn't hear. The sheriff walked in and asked whoever was in the chambers that he needed to speak with the judge in private, and the doors were closed.
Okay, Dr. Carol Lieberman, let me ask you about this. This is very specific. No one heard yelling, right? You might not hear the conversation with the door closed, but if there's like screaming, you might hear it. He sees something on the judge's phone. The judge voluntarily gives him his phone. He looks at that phone and he's got a second phone in the other hand. Something on that phone seems to be what put the sheriff over the top in that moment.
And a lot of people are saying it was the contact photo that he had for the sheriff's daughter. Also, remember that when the sheriff looked at the judge's phone, he's going to be able to see how many times they've called each other, how long they've talked. I don't know how long he held the phone in if he looked through all of that. Text messages, all that's going to be there. So, something sent him over the edge.
This is a little bit like a game of telephone, because all we have to go on is, there's sort of innuendos, there are rumors. There's a lot of stuff on social media. And for example, I heard that they exchanged phones. But here's what I think, again, basing it on sort of a conglomerate of what people, rumor mill, basically. But in any case, supposedly at the lunch that they had together, the sheriff got a phone call, or it could have been a text, so, which would explain what he was showing him on his phone, perhaps. And it got him very upset. And he took his meal to go. It's not like, it's not like they were sitting and chatting in a friendly kind of way for a long time over lunch. So he got his, again, basing it on putting stories together. So he got up, he took his food, and he left. And then, so then he came into the sheriff's the judge's chambers, and there are stories about how it might have to do with that he had the impression, and perhaps that had to do with a text that he got, and then he saw something on the judge's phone that confirmed it in some way, that it had to do with his the judge sexually assaulting or abusing or having a relationship with the sheriff's daughter. Now, that would explain
his minor daughter. And again, I think that would explain why you would shoot somebody. I would, to be honest with you.
That would be something that could, inflame him between the lunch text and being in the chamber.
At the same time, and these rumors have been flying around at the same time.
So, okay, you've got to think about with the yelling, like no argument or yelling. You've got to think about, you got to put yourself in that mindset. And so you're like, you have this theory and you've thought about, you kind of know it's true and you've been thinking about it for several days, months, however long, okay? And you have just come to a point where you're done with it. You're pretty much certain you know what's going on, but you need to verify it. And then you go in there and you verify it. There's not going to be any yelling, arguing, or screaming. You're just going to verify it. You've already thought about what you're going to do. You've played it out in your head 17,000 different times. And you would just pick up the gun and you'd be like, okay, all right, I'm done. I found out what I need to know. It's time for you to be gone from this earth. That's it. That's all. And then you have what happened. You know, if the sheriff asked the judge, is A, B, and C going on? And the judge said, yeah, it is. What are you going to do about it? There would be, again, no yelling or arguing. Okay, motherfucker, let me show you what I'm going to do about it. And then what happened happens.
There is a member of the family who is saying that that rumor is not true, and of Sheriff Stein's family. So, but it's got to be connected to that text message. Ned, let me ask you, Ned, could you foresee anything that would be on the judge's phone connected to the civil lawsuit?
It's hard to say. I mean, the civil lawsuit covered a lot of ground. It basically alleged, I think NBC News quoted me, is Ben Fields, the bailiff, who had sex with at least one woman in the judge's chambers, and I think at least two others. You know, they turned that courthouse kind of into a brothel for several years. And there's been speculation in the local newspaper that
several years. Okay, so now let's go back to, if the judge is messing with the sheriff's daughter, stuff's been going on for several years. The daughter is 17 right now. How long had the judge been messing with the daughter, if that is true? And what age was she when they started? That's another, yeah, you know, if the child was 14, 15 years old, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take you out. That's just going to be that. I'm sorry. That's my child. No, nope.
That perhaps the reason why they suddenly added cameras to the judge's chambers was over the lawsuit I filed.
Wow.
I filed the lawsuit January of 22.
Yep.
Thereafter, we told the Attorney General's office, hey, we have these sexual text messages from the gentleman controlling the ankle bracelet that my client was on that left no doubt that they were having a sexual relationship. And 7 months later, the ankle bracelet, the deputy sheriff, Ben Fields, was indicted, and he pled guilty this past January. So there's been speculation in the local newspaper that perhaps the cameras were added after the lawsuit was filed.
That would make sense. That would make sense. Ned Pillersdorf, stay with us. Dr. Carol Lieberman, stay with us. Coming up next, big question. Is anyone supporting the sheriff?
That is a good question.
Two men's lives were changed forever. Their families' lives were changed.
Why did they put, okay, look, you know, why are they putting a picture of the judge holding a baby here? Where I'm sure there's pictures of the sheriff holding a baby too. Why are we not what are we doing here? I'm just asking. Inquiring mind wants to know.
Forever.
Sarah Boone is charged with second-degree murder after her boyfriend.
That's an interesting case. I might try to look into that one. Let me try to skip us ahead through this. Oops. I don't want to go. Okay, I think we just come back from the commercial break.
Begging for help.
I thought he was okay.
The Suitcase Murder Trial. Live
crazy.
coverage starting October 7th on Court TV.
Stormy skies, yeah.
We have always got along. I always thought he was hilarious. I always thought he was very witty. He was fun to be around outside of court. And as a brother-in-law, I will never forget how kind he was to my children. It seemed that he had maybe endless patience for kids.
I was shocked. I was shocked and hurt at the same time, man. I hate to say where Kevin goes because he helps a lot of people out. Sure did. You know?
I would compare it to how I felt when the planes hit the towers in New York. You know, that was that shock.
Look, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But no, we're not going to compare it to that. This is a businessman. Looks like he might have some kind of power in the community. I wouldn't be surprised to find out he's a mayor or something to that effect. We're not going to compare this situation to 9/11. We're not doing that. I mean, that's just, we're pulling on heartstrings at this point. Let's skip that. Thank you.
Shocked. He wanted to help people. And he spent most of his career doing that, especially in the drug rehab program.
The shooting death of Judge Kevin Mullins out in Letcher County has touched the entire community, and the outpouring of love and kind words has been nonstop since this shooting. Now, Sheriff Mickey Steins was also elected by those people. But now things have changed, right? A
Both of them were. The sheriff and the judge are elected officials. Thank you.
man who was elected to enforce the law is now on the other side, accused of murder, which brings me to my next question. Is anyone supporting the sheriff? Are people rallying behind the sheriff? What exactly is going on? Still with me, the attorney representing the woman suing Sheriff Steins, Ned Pillersdorf, and forensic psychiatrist Dr. Carol Lieberman. Ned, let me ask you first, the filing of the lawsuit, all of this, obviously a huge story when that was
So yeah, my hubby at work, he came across this and he sent this to me. And since I won't be able to go live tomorrow, I figured I'd go ahead and jump on here and go over it. I also found something that my moderator sent me that talks about a possible motive. So if I have time, I'm going to try to watch that. Or if we don't catch a possible motive in this video, I'm going to pull that up as well. It's nice to see you, Trixie, and everybody else who was able to make it. I didn't think anybody would be able to because it just was a pop-up live. So I do apologize about doing that. I just wanted to go ahead and go over this real quick since I didn't know if anybody had covered it yet, and I won't be able to come live tomorrow. Thank you again, everybody, for being here. And if you're watching the replay, thank you as well.
began a couple of years ago. How did the community react under those circumstances relative to the sheriff?
I don't think there was much interest in the sheriff. It was more focused on Ben Fields, the individual who ran the ankle bracelet program. But, you know, the fact that we put in the lawsuit that the sexual encounters occurred in the judge's office did cause some attention being given. I felt when I went to that courthouse, I felt a certain coolness. I don't think people appreciated the lawsuit. I sued a popular sheriff. But on the other hand, I think things changed after Ben Fields was indicted and the eventual guilty plea.
I personally think that the sheriff didn't know what was going on. He found what was going on when this lawsuit came and that person pled guilty. And then that made him look into other things that might be happening at the courthouse. And he found other things happening at the courthouse. And then he found out that not only were other things going on at the courthouse, but his daughter was involved in it, and he snapped. That's my thought on what happened, but I could be completely wrong. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. And I've heard some of yours, and you all have really good theories.
The guilty plea occurred, the Mountain Eagle, the local newspaper, which, by the way, is an excellent newspaper for a small town, had a long interview with one of the ladies, and she told a pretty compelling story. You know, how that impacted Sheriff Steins. It's a small sheriff's department, and the allegations we made were pretty sweeping. And in fairness to the defendants, they have denied the allegations. With the except for the fact that Fields did plead guilty to felony sex charges.
I want to put this up on the screen because there's actually a GoFundMe to support the Steins family. And this is part of the statement that's on that GoFundMe page. My name is Ginger Isaac. I am Caroline's sister-in-law, and that would be the sheriff's wife. Please consider donating to assist the family of Sheriff Mickey Steins to help with the expenses they will encounter during this tragic time. Also added in all of this was the rumor about their daughter being sexually abused is false. We don't want anyone donating under false pretenses.
Okay, so my thought on that is, number one, if it could be true and the parent, because if that was going on with your child, I think she's already been abused enough and you wouldn't want that out here as much as possible. You know, that would be her story to tell down the road. So that could be why they're saying that. Number two, it's been rumored, and I think the judge even said they were trying to kidnap my wife and daughter. If they were trying to kidnap his wife and daughter, that's another motive for possibly doing what he did. And why would they be trying to kidnap the wife and daughter? Well, the only reason you would kidnap somebody close to somebody else is to get that person to do something you want them to do. So what are they trying to, how are they trying to entrap the sheriff? What do they need the sheriff to do that he's not willing to do? And to the point that they're willing to go to the extent of kidnapping his wife and daughter. Another thing about Appalachia, especially in small towns like this, people go missing a lot and are never found a lot. There's a case, maybe if I can find it, I'll post it on my community wall, but there was like 4 or 5 people that just disappeared out of nowhere in like a 2-month period in Appalachia. I think it was West Virginia, but like I mean, if he was afraid that they were going to get kidnapped and be hurt in some type of way, that's possible too.
They've raised money. I don't know what the number said on the screen right there. The current, I looked at it earlier, and it was north of $8,000 so far. Dr. Carol Lieberman, your thoughts here about the support for a man who's accused of a horrific crime?
I think there were a lot of people who, or are a lot of people who really appreciated him. I mean, he worked as the sheriff for quite a while, and he helped people. I mean, there was one woman talking about how whenever he saw her, he would give her a hug and ask her if there was anything he could do for her. I mean, it seems like there were positive feelings towards him from a lot of people who were asked. So, you know, when you think about it's a couple of other things that are interesting is the idea that when he came to the deposition, he was sort of non-responsive and depressed. Now, of course, nobody likes to be sued, but depositions can be very harsh and challenging. But still, and put that together with the fact that he supposedly hasn't talked to his family since he got arrested. So there's still water is run deep. I mean, I think there's something more there, you know, that he's either ashamed of or that he's feels bad about. I mean, it's just strange the fact, if it was having to do with his daughter, I don't know that he wouldn't talk to his family. I think he would want to talk to his family and explain that that's why he did it. So, also, you know, what would be on the judge's phone would be some kind.
Are they going to allow him to talk to his daughter? If she's involved in the case, they might not allow him to talk to her.
Kind of communicate, possibly, you know, some potential thing that would have triggered him would be some kind of communication either with the daughter or with somebody about the daughter. Again, if the daughter has anything to do with it. But I don't think it would be something more impersonal like the court case, as much as he probably was very depressed and upset about that.
Yeah, and I think once information comes out about the why of it, I think that will certainly impact the level of support or non-support for the sheriff. And I think that has that'll play a big role in all of this, Dr. Carol Lieberman. We have about 30 seconds here.
Well, you know, I think the sooner that this information comes out, the better, because rather than everybody, you know, in that small town having a rumor fest, you know, I don't think that helps anybody. I think that it's of course it's tragic, and it's what people are going to want to think about, or once they do find out.
It's a beautiful place to live.
What the deal was, they're going to want to think, you know, was this something that would make somebody, you know, have a, what do you call it? When it's an emergency, an emotional reason why what am I trying to think of when it's an emotional reason? I think
the word is written in the statute, like an extreme emotional disturbance. And that's in the statute itself. Dr. Carol Lieberman, we are out of time for now.
Instead of murder.
Yeah, exactly. We're out of time for now. Thank you so much. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.
Sorry if that's
you-
loud.
Understanding, because the accused killer is the local sheriff, Mickey Steins. Here's the story.
I guess it's playing over again. Let me make sure that it doesn't tell it do anything. Okay, hold on. We got some more information. So let me back that right on up. So we'll listen to this part again. I guess they're doing a recap because it's halfway through the show and we got some documents to look at.
But now everyone is taking another look at that case because something else happened in the judge's chambers. The judge was shot and killed, and the local sheriff is the one being charged. What's going on in this small Kentucky town?
And the shooting happened in the small Kentucky town in the judge's chambers, but something else happened in the judge's chambers. And it may or may not be connected to all of this. And it involved one of the sheriff's deputies who he pleaded guilty to it, was sexually assaulting inmates, female inmates, in the judge's chambers after hours. Bizarre behavior, very criminal behavior.
I got something for that real quick. Let me play my little clip it. It's loud.
Brother, what's that? What's that, brother?
Let's not be abusing women. That's gross. Thank you.
Behavior, and that's happening in the same chambers where there's a shooting death of the judge. I want to explain a little bit about this civil lawsuit. So there was a criminal case involving that deputy Ben Fields, but now there's a civil lawsuit as well. And in the civil lawsuit, the allegations against Ben Fields, who's a former deputy. Defendant Fields, a deputy sheriff with the Letcher County Sheriff's Department, was assigned to be the plaintiff's home incarceration officer. Plaintiff notified defendant Fields that she did not have the money to pay for her ankle bracelet, but she was terrified to return to the Letcher County Jail.
Wow.
Defendant Fields made flirtatious comments about the plaintiff's looks and body and told her that he was confident they could, quote, work something out. Defendant
Using your position of power over this poor woman to abuse her. That's sick. That's gross.
Fields took the plaintiff into District Judge Mullins' chambers, telling plaintiff that he wanted to meet her there because there were no cameras. At this time, defendant Fields took off.
Are you on camera saying that you want to meet her somewhere else because there's no cameras?
The plaintiff's ankle monitor and told her that she would not have to pay the associated fees any longer, but could remain out on home incarceration. Between late June and December of 2021, defendant Fields met plaintiff at the Letcher County Courthouse in the evening or early morning hours approximately 6 times. During these meetings, defendant Fields' behavior escalated from flirtatious comments to forcible kissing to oral sex to intercourse with the plaintiff, all of which occurred at the Letcher County Courthouse after hours in Judge Mullins' chambers. So,
That is so gross.
the criminal case.
Why? You got a position of power over an inmate who is so stressed out about going back to jail that you use that to basically grape her. What? I have a question. How did he get into this position of power to begin with? Did nobody pick up on these signs that he could be this type of person? Like, there's always signs of how people really are. Like, if you're brazen enough to say that to an inmate, there's other signs throughout his life, throughout his work history, maybe sexual harassment in the office or something like that, that nobody picked up on and made him the head person over this drug program. I want to know how that happened.
Case happened, it's resolved. He was fired by the sheriff, this deputy. But
Right?
now
HSA?
there's the civil suit, and it's ongoing. And the sheriff had been deposed in this civil suit. So that brings me to my next question. What is the sheriff's connection to the civil lawsuit? Why is the sheriff being sued here? Right? The deputy is the one alleged to have coerced the victim in that sex assault, those 6 times. But how about the sheriff? Joining me to help work through all this, Deputy Public Defender for LA County, Philip Dubé, and joining us by phone, forensic expert and the former chief deputy of the Orangeburg County Sheriff's Office. You remember him from the Alec Murdaugh trial, Dr. Kenneth Kinsey. Thank you both for being here. Okay, let me start with you, Philip. Your initial thoughts about the civil suit involving the sheriff.
Yeah, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if plaintiff's counsel, what was his name? Ned.
Ned Pillersdorf.
Mr. Pillersdorf filed a civil rights lawsuit, I believe, in federal court. I don't know if it was in Letcher County where this occurred or in a neighboring county, wherever their U.S. Central District is. But in any event, I believe he is alleging that the entire sheriff's department under Mickey Stein's supervision acted under color of law by failing to intervene, knowing good and well that these sexual exploits were going on in the courthouse, let alone in a judge's chambers.
So in order to put that in a lawsuit and file it, you've got to be able to prove that. So evidently this lawyer for the girl who was abused feels that he's got enough evidence to prove that. So that makes us look at the sheriff more. Maybe he did know.
And if he turned a blind eye to what was going on, failed to intervene to prevent this, then it could be actionable under a Section 1983 civil rights type theory. Additionally, it could be criminally actionable. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised at all, Vinnie, if the U.S. attorneys are involved with the DOJ investing criminal civil rights abuses. And it could be that maybe Steins knew that he was under a federal probe, under a federal investigation. And this is rank speculation, but maybe went to see the judge to see if anybody had tried to interview him, get a statement, sent him any type of communication for further intel on what, if anything, the judge may have known. And it's very possible that maybe the judge was talking to law enforcement and word got back to Steins. And then before you know it, we have a homicide in chambers. But again,
I don't think I can agree with that, because again, I mean, if you knew about something like that, you would get in trouble. You would have a rather large fine to pay and you would lose your job. It would be, what is the word? Publicly embarrassing. It would be publicly embarrassing, right? But it's not enough to murder somebody over. To murder somebody, it's got to be something real close, family, child, something like that, in my opinion.
But again, that's separate and apart from any civil liability that is pending.
Now, I want to put up on the screen, this is from the civil lawsuit. Upon information and belief, the Letcher County Sheriff, that's Mickey Steins, and unknown supervisors of defendant Fields.
So to Joy, I heard the daughter was an intern to the judge. Not sure if it's true. I also heard that, and that's what made me think that the daughter was being abused. Solistic Glow says, how did they get in the judge's chambers, and why the camera in the judge's chambers? So what would have happened? Okay, everybody has a past. I've had a past and everything. When you go to jail and then you have your first court appearance, or you have to go to court, usually there is a tunnel it goes from the jail to the courthouse, so that you can transport inmates without having to drive them in the car and go out in public. It's not everywhere, but a lot of places there is just a tunnel that goes up under the courthouse from the jail to the courthouse, so you can take the inmates in and then you put them in the holding cell that's in the courthouse. After hours, all those cameras are going to be off. The cameras that are in the tunnel going from the jail to the courthouse, and the cameras in the courthouse are going to be off. So that's why they would go there. As far as the camera being in the judge's chambers, from what I understand, it was a hidden camera placed there, so that they could try to see what was going on since this court case had been filed. And I would think the sheriff knew it was there, but I don't know. He might not have. I also wonder why there's no audio. If you're in the judge's chambers and two attorneys are talking, I don't think you're supposed to know what they're saying. So maybe that's why there's no audio. But it seems to me like if you had a hidden camera, you would want it to have audio. But if you're trying to verify if there's relations going on in there, you wouldn't necessarily need audio, because I mean, if you see two people having relations, you can pretty much figure out what they're doing.
That's a deputy who was actually doing it, failed to adequately train and supervise defendant Fields. You've got to train someone not to coerce an inmate into engaging in that conduct. Upon information and belief, the Letcher County Sheriff knew or should have known that the defendant Fields was sexually abusing females, including the plaintiff in his charge. Females, there's more than one accuser in all of this. So that's significant. Knew or should have known about it. He's working for him. It's a small department. Upon information and belief, the Letcher County Sheriff did not reasonably respond to reports or suspicions of sexual abuse perpetrated by defendant Fields. So if you hear those rumors that you may be hearing now about this case, Dr. Kenny Kinsey, I want to bring you in to take us inside a sheriff's department, right? You've got the sheriff. How you doing? The sheriff's the elected head of the department. This is a relatively small department in Eastern Kentucky in the Appalachia area.
So if he heard that things were going on and didn't respond in time, promptly, he might have been trying to do his own investigation to verify it first, because you don't want to believe that the people under you are doing things like that. So maybe that's why, or he knew about it and not necessarily condoned it, but was like saying, okay, you guys got to stop doing that or whatever. When you have a small town like this, you have to also question what else is going on. Are we bringing drugs in and out? Are we racketeering? Are we funneling money? All these things are possible, and the sheriff might or might not have known about it.
Is it hard to believe that the sheriff wouldn't have known or heard anything about this? What are your thoughts there about the allegations and what the deputy pleaded guilty to, and what the sheriff would likely know or not know?
I hope I can be that for
Vinnie,
you.
thank you for having me. And your other guest is absolutely right, and your synopsis is accurate as well. There are two things that sheriff's offices are generally sued for: failure to train, failure to supervise. And that vicarious liability, the sheriff is an awesome responsibility. A man or woman who is elected sheriff, they are considered the highest law enforcement in their respective county. And most of our states certainly go by that. There's a few states where sheriffs are appointed, but there's over 3,000 honorable men and women who wear a sheriff's badge. But it's so much authority and so much of an awesome responsibility. Sometimes they go left of center. And when they're in there so long and you're given that authority for so long and you have such a large following, everyone wants to be friends of the sheriff. And those are from, the bottom to the top of the spectrum. And most of those, I call them hanger-ons, and I've worked for 4 sheriffs, so I'm very familiar with this. Many of them have great intentions. They just want to support.
Anita, nice to see you. Glad that you're here. Says that I don't understand her reasoning. People don't shoot other men for being involved with their wife. Is she talking about facts or is she talking about theory? If you're talking about me, yes, that's what I said earlier. And in my other live about this, I don't think that he would have shot the judge for messing with his wife. I think that's something that you would just, get a divorce. Okay, I'm heartbroken. My heart's a little upset and all that. But if you take into account that the judge was supposedly a mentor to his daughter, and the fact that it is not his wife, it's his child, that's going to give me the basis of, yeah, I might shoot somebody for that reason. My significant other, if they're cheating, that is what it is. But not, I don't think at all that if I found out my child was being hurt or abused in that way, yeah, I might have the same reaction. I don't know if you were referring to me, but that's my thought on that. Also, my channel is, everything I say is just my opinion and speculation. Just to put that out there. I don't have any facts. If I have facts, I will try to let you know that it is a fact. But generally speaking, it's just my speculations.
For local law enforcement. Many of them have nefarious reasons for supporting the highest law enforcement in the county. And when you get those two lines blurred, that's where your ethics and integrity comes in there. And, the sheriff is a good target because he is ultimately responsible. He holds the bond, or his department holds the bond on every sworn officer that works under his umbrella. And in most states, you work at the will and pleasure of the sheriff. So that's an awesome amount of responsibility for one man or woman to hold. And, sometimes when you're there too long, you think you're untouchable. I'm not saying that's the case here, but you think you're untouchable. And it's many a slip.
In a small town like this where there's only one judge and you have the judge in your pocket, yeah, you would run it like you were untouchable if that's what's going on here. I just caught the bottom of this. It says stifle yourself, dingbat. I wonder what that's all about.
Slip towards a couple.
Obviously, it's like to elect somebody, but still.
Lip. And it doesn't start as what we're seeing here in these chambers. It doesn't start in the former litigation. It starts small and then it grows. And when they come in and do these investigations, generally, it's scary what they uncover. Some small violations, but many times it leads to something much larger.
Are you shocked that they're using the judges' chambers, that Ben Fields was using the judges' chambers early in the morning or after hours?
Wow, Vinnie, it's two things I've never done in courthouse security except on special occasions and dispatching. But every time I've been in a judge's chambers, I've had some pleasant experiences, but I want to get out of there as quick as possible. I don't know that would be the perfect spot for me or in my situation here in our state, but I'm not shocked because
if you were using the tunnel, if there's a tunnel there and it goes under the courthouse, that's okay. So if you leave the jail, you're going to have to go through cameras. They're going to see you putting an inmate in a car. Okay. But if you take the inmate through the tunnel that goes to the courthouse, there might not be any cameras back there to after hours or whatever, because they're going to think that you're not using it after the courthouse is closed. And then you go to the courthouse, all those cameras are off, and you go somewhere where there's not supposed to be any cameras. It makes perfect sense to me. Because if you take the inmate out of the jail, like I said, there's cameras everywhere. You're going to get caught on camera and then you're going to be busted. So it makes perfect sense to me that the next place you have access to without being seen, being the courthouse, that you would go there to do the dirty deed.
Because like I said, this isn't the first time this officer did this. And it builds. And of course, you don't steal the whole cookie jar. You take one cookie and then two cookies, and then eventually a child will, work his way up. And I think they're going to uncover some other things in that case and what we're talking about this evening.
Philip Dubé, do you think there's any way that these two things are not connected? The shooting of the judge in the chambers and what Deputy Fields was doing in the chambers and the lawsuit and the deposition and everything else that is sort of circulating in this very small community?
I just think everything is so interwoven and interlaced, if you will, that it's all somehow connected. I have no doubt. I just can't imagine that over civil litigation that someone would go and kill a judge. Right. It's very common for law enforcement, sheriff's officials, police officials to get sued. And they're typically defended by the municipality. And I believe in Letcher County, they have a Letcher County attorney that does just that. They provide civil defense for their elected and appointed officials should there be any litigation while in office. And that's what they do. Listen, you can't ever stop people from suing. And a lot of times the claims have no merit, they're groundless, and sometimes people are just looking for a quick payday. And obviously there are other cases that are quite meritorious. And that's what discovery and litigation is all about, to get to the truth, get to all the facts. But my spidey sense says that the DOJ is involved in this one, and he might be running scared, because the last thing that Sheriff Steins needs is for his entire department to be hurled into a receivership and be taken over by the feds until they can restore law and order.
Yeah, it's so complicated trying to get inside the mind of Mickey Steins when he allegedly shot the judge.
I don't know. I'm going to pull up where I tried to call them. Well, you can't hear it, so I won't pull it up. But I did try to call the sheriff's office, the Letcher County Sheriff's Office, and they said they were closed until October 1st. And this was October 1st at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening, and they were still closed.
Oh.
And I think they closed the sheriff's office because the feds are coming in to audit the sheriff's office, and they were still doing the audit.
Okay, still to come. What does it take to remove a sheriff from his job?
Sir, it's my understanding that he's in the process of losing his job as the sheriff of Letcher County, obviously.
Hold on.
Tonight on Court TV.
Courtroom.
What's happening?
Sir, it's my understanding that he's in the process of losing his job as the sheriff of Letcher County, obviously, and will not have income going forward.
So Sheriff Mickey Steins is still sheriff. He made his appearance as still being the sheriff of Letcher County. That's why when they incarcerated him, they sent him to a different county so he wasn't in charge of himself behind bars. Slight conflict of interest there. So something else has happened, because obviously this is huge news everywhere, and it's kind of a awkward situation when you have the sheriff of the county accused of murder and murdering the judge from the county, and he's still in office. So take a look here.
Sorry. Hold on, y'all.
There was a letter from the governor, Andy Bashir, who wrote, Sheriff Steins, we ask that you tender your resignation as the Letcher County Sheriff to the Letcher County Judge Executive by the end of Friday, September 27, 2024. If you do not tender your resignation, the governor will move forward with removal under KRS 63-100.
So that's something new that I did not know about. Wow. Okay. So yeah, he was getting fired. He wasn't going to be the sheriff anymore. That is interesting. And if the mayor's involved, I mean, did this sheriff feel like he's fighting the judge, the mayor, the pastor, the police force, everybody? He's the lone person fighting all of this corruption? Is that a possibility?
Sincerely, S. Travis Mayo, General Counsel for the governor. Brings me to my next question, which is, again, what does it take? What does it take, folks, to remove a sheriff from his job? I mean, he surrendered himself after allegedly shooting the judge, like turned himself in, but still is the sheriff. He did place his gun allegedly down on counsel table in the courtroom. Wow. With me, Deputy Public Defender for LA County, Philip Dubé, joining us by phone, forensic expert, former Chief Deputy of the Orangeburg County Sheriff's Office. You know him from the Murdoch trial, Dr. Kenneth Kinsey. Dr. Kinsey, I want to begin with you on the notion of a sheriff stepping down. How reluctant are sheriffs to step down, resign, and give up their office and their position?
Vinny, I've seen it work both ways. I've seen a sheriff removed by the governor and went on to end up doing prison time, of course, after the trial. And I've seen a sheriff put on leave by a governor, all of his power being taken away.
So that letter there that we heard from counsel for the mayor brings a new aspect of this. Could he have possibly been involved and not want to give up his spot as sheriff? I mean, if the feds are coming in and you know your game is your bread is toast, I think you would just leave. The statement made, they're trying to kidnap my wife and daughter, is going to be the biggest role that's played in this, because he told us the motive. That was why he did what he did. They were trying to kidnap his wife and daughter, per what he said. So what does that mean? And does that mean the mayor's involved and he is removing him as sheriff again to try to get him to bend to his will, to try to kind of sweep things under the rug, get the feds out of there so they can continue with the corruption that was going on in the town? What's going on here? Why is the mayor removing him from sheriff? Was it, as you would publicly guess, like, okay, it has something to do with the what was going on and the abuse that was happening to the inmates? Or is it more of a I know, if you don't leave office and walk away quietly and resign, then we're going to kidnap your wife and child? Is that a possibility? It could be.
And then it make its way through the court, and he was exonerated and went right back into office. But regardless, you can be fired by your constituents every 4 years or every 6 years, respectively, depending on where you live. But that is a big that's a big mud puddle to tread. Once something happens, whether you're exonerated or not, it's going to be real hard when you go to run for office at the end of your term. So it's kind of a death sentence a lot of times, depending on the severity of the case. But many times, if you see a sheriff voluntarily resign, it's because he or she knows the cards are stacked against him, because generally speaking, they're going to fight it till the last minute. And, hopefully they can, get a jury in their favor, and of course they can go back into office. And I have seen it both ways. Just recently here in our state, a sheriff was suspended by the governor, and it worked out in his favor in court, and he went right back into office.
I want to put that Kentucky statute up, the 63-100. It's removal of peace officers for neglect, charges, and notice. A peace officer guilty of neglect of duty shall be removed from.
So this is the statute referenced in the letter by the mayor that was asking the sheriff to resign.
Office in the manner prescribed below. The governor shall sign written charges, set forth the grounds for removal of the officer. The charges, when considered collectively, must be supported by the affidavit of at least 2 witnesses, but it shall not be necessary to support each separate count or individual charge embraced in the charges by 2 affidavits. The affidavits must be filed by the governor as part of the record in the proceedings. The charges need not possess the formalities and exactness of an indictment. The charges shall be recorded in the executive journal, and an attested copy shall be made by the Secretary of State. No response shall be filed to the charges. They shall stand traverse of record. Notice must be given to the officer sought to be removed, stating a time and place of the hearing, giving him at least 20 days to prepare his defense. Okay, let me ask you, Philip Dubé, if he doesn't voluntarily step down and the governor has to go forward, how do you see that playing out?
It operates similar to the articles of impeachment process that we see in the federal government. So essentially what he would do is prepare sort of removal grounds, typically rooted in misconduct or neglect of office. And then the charges are brought for public hearing to the Legislative Council. And they hold a full public hearing, and they take evidence, they take testimony, and then they vote.
Let me ask you this, though. Let me ask you this. If you've got murder charges pending against you.
Well, I think that he's not the sheriff anymore, nor will he be, even if he's charged with manslaughter. I don't think that that's even a possibility. I think he's done being sheriff, and he decided that before he even entered the judge's chambers, Vinny.
Do you have a right to, have it delayed because you don't want to incriminate yourself? Usually when there's a civil litigation and there's a criminal case, all the civil stuff just sits and waits until the criminal case. But here they're so intertwined.
Well, the Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination attaches also at administrative hearings such as this, or legislative hearings. They're not limited to judicial proceedings. So if he is subpoenaed to testify at his own sort of impeachment trial, if you will, and he takes the Fifth, he can certainly do that. And they're going to have to prove the misconduct or the removal grounds with other evidence. And I'm sure they have it. You know, all they have to do. And by the way, the rules of evidence are much more relaxed at these types of hearings because the evidence code does not apply. It's basically an administrative proceeding. So a lot of hearsay is allowed in, evidence that doesn't really have the true foundation or authentication that we would have to set forth in a judicial proceeding is not required. So they would absolutely be able to prove it up. Well, let's go with that question you had about, let's assume he does get indicted. You know, you cannot use the criminal justice process as a tool to remove elected officials. He would have to be convicted and sent to prison because obviously he cannot serve the people from behind bars.
Philip Dubé, great to see you. Thank you so much. Dr. Kenny Kinsey, appreciate your insight. Thank you. This investigation is really about one thing. What would drive a family man, an elected man of the law, to, in a moment's time, allegedly commit an act that would take him away from his family, away from his job, and put him behind bars with some of the people he's arrested through the years? Uncovering that will be the key to trying to understand what happened and will be the key for the jury to figure out what to do with all of this. I'm Vinnie Politan.
So that is the question. What is going to make you do that? And again, I think he picked up that judge's phone. He saw the contact picture for the daughter that he had in his phone, and I think it was something salacious. I really do. We're going to look at this possible motive that my lovely mod Jenny Jen sent me real quick. I think it has chapters, and I'll just jump to what this is again going to be Vinnie Politan. I'm going to jump to what he says a possible motive could be. And I know when we went over the hearing the other day, in the other live, the sheriff asked to be moved, and yeah, they need to move him. They need to move him far away from that courtroom, from that jail, because he is in a jail with people who he has arrested. He don't need to be anywhere near that town. I wonder if the Kentucky State Police that have also taken over, how close is their location that they're operating out of, that detective is out of? Is it close by? Could he be involved with everything that's going on in the town? I mean, because you can only keep things quiet for so long before you have to involve the Kentucky State Police and all of that. If you're not pulling people from other states or all the way across the state, I feel like their hands could possibly be dirty. So this again is Court TV. This is going to be a Vinnie Politan thing, and this right here is what's supposed to be a new possible motive for the shooting.
That video lasted much longer, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And have you had an opportunity to review the video?
I have.
Of the prior incident?
I have.
And can you describe for us what happened immediately prior to the clip that we saw?
That girl, hold on, sorry. I'll back it up just a little bit. This girl behind him, this girl right here, that's his daughter.
It's my understanding that video lasted much longer, correct?
His daughter.
Yes.
Okay. And have you had an opportunity to review the video?
I have.
Of the prior incident?
I have.
And can you describe for us what happened immediately prior to the clip that we saw?
Sheriff Steins uses his telephone to make phone calls.
I want to know where this Kentucky State Police officer is located. I want to know where his branch is located out of. Is it close to the town where this happened? Because if so, his hands might be dirty as well. And a lot of people had a lot to say about him not really knowing the case. But what we have to remember is when he's on this stand, he's investigating what he's being questioned about right now, and he can't give out details of the case he's investigating, or that's going to jeopardize the whole case. So I think he was being very vague to protect the validity of the case that he's investigating right now.
He then borrows Judge Mullen's cell phone and appears to make a call on that. And that led to what you just saw.
Okay. So it's my understanding there were some people who were having a meeting with Judge Mullins prior to the sheriff's entry into the chambers. Is that correct?
Yes.
Have you identified those witnesses?
I don't know the names of them. There's about approximately 4 people in there. Then Sheriff Steins enters the judge's chambers.
Now, keep in mind that this man is also testifying under oath about an open investigation that he is investigating. So at that point, did you tell the people that are doing like the interrogations and getting the information for you, did you tell them, don't tell me anything, because you knew you were going to be testifying under oath? And if it was found out later that you're lying, you would face prison time. So is that another reason why he didn't really know a lot about this case? There's several possibilities. I don't think that he's just not going to investigate it. I think it has to do with they're asking him about an open case that he's currently investigating, and he can't give out details. Personally, that's my thought.
And everybody else clears out.
Once the 4 people that were inside, that we don't know their names, once these 4 people had left the chambers, were they in an area adjacent where they could hear anything that was going on?
Yes, I believe some of them did remain in the next room.
Okay. And what did they tell us?
Do what?
What did they hear?
I've not been part. I wasn't part of those interviews.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, you're prepared for a preliminary hearing on a murder, and there are witnesses in an adjacent room.
I mean, they heard gunshots.
Can I put my question, please?
Yeah, please ask the question.
Thank you, officer. So you are investigating a murder and testifying in a preliminary hearing, and there are witnesses who may have overheard what preceded this edited clip, yet you can't tell us today anything that they said?
I've not personally listened to those interviews. I've talked to the other officers that did those interviews.
Fair enough. And I mean, we're here at preliminary hearing, as you know, that you can testify to hearsay. I'm asking you what they said.
They heard gunshots.
Okay. Was there any statements that they overheard?
No.
Were there raised voices?
There, one person stated that she didn't recognize him as being Judge Mullen's voice, but heard somebody say, help, help.
Of course, your investigation, did you ascertain that prior in the day there had been a lunch meeting between Sheriff Steins and Judge Mullins?
There was.
Pardon?
There was.
Okay. Sorry, I couldn't hear your response. I wasn't being trite.
Watch his body language. That's what I've been sitting here watching. I didn't get to see it that up close when I went over this the other day before. I think it was yesterday that we did this in my morning live.
So where did this take place?
It's a restaurant called Street Side, and it's just down the street from the courthouse.
Okay. And it's my understanding there were a couple of other people who attended the luncheon?
There were several, yes.
Okay. And at some point after that, they wrapped up lunch and left, obviously, and went back to the courthouse. Are you aware of anything so far in your investigation that would tell us there was any issues at lunch between Judge Mullins and Sheriff Steins?
No.
Okay. But someone on behalf of the KSB has spoken to those witnesses?
Yes, they've all been interviewed.
And there's nothing unusual that had arisen during that luncheon?
I was told that the judge made a statement to Mickey about, do we need to meet private in my chambers? That's all I was told.
Do you know the context of?
I do not.
The conversation was before that they would need to discuss in chambers?
I do not.
Again,
So it's my understanding
it had to be something to do with your child for you to murder somebody, in my opinion.
that in the larger portion of the video that we haven't had access to, that there is a point when Sheriff Steins asked for to see the telephone of Judge Mullins.
Yes.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And I would presume that you and the other officers you mentioned, when you secured the scene, that you secured those phones as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
And have you reviewed both of those phones?
They're currently at the forensic lab at this time being downloaded. I have had discussions with the people at the lab regarding the downloads.
Based upon your conversations with the officers, are you aware of any recent content that was up and could have been relevant at the time of their discussion?
I was told that Sheriff Steins had tried to call his daughter, and he had tried to call his daughter from the judge's phone also.
Have officers confirmed that the sheriff's daughter's phone number was on Judge Mullins' phone?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
So that number had been called from Judge Mullins' phone?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And then she picked up on the first ring for Judge Mullins, but didn't pick up at all for her father, supposedly. And the contact picture broke the sheriff's heart. And that's a possibility of why he shot the judge.
There's your case. There's what this is going to be all about. Why is the sheriff's daughter's phone number on the judge's phone?
17-year-old girl.
And what exactly is the nature of that connection? And is that, and it seems to somehow be related to the sheriff's daughter, the factor that made the sheriff do what he did. Like, he took these actions for a reason, knowing what the result would be.
Right, exactly.
Big day in Kentucky. Court TV producer Cody Thomas on the case tonight, joining us live from West Liberty.
So if you guys want to finish that interview, please go check out Court TV. Again, I did do a live on this, and I did a breakdown of everything using what I know about courts and things like that to give you guys my thoughts and theories and opinions on that. It is a live that says, why did the sheriff shoot the judge? I do believe, and I think it was yesterday's live. If you guys want to check that out, please do. Hello, all the new speculating family members. It's good to see you. Nice to meet you. Thank you guys for being here. If you're watching the replay, thank you for that. Again, you have to question, why would you shoot somebody? I'm not going to shoot somebody over my husband. I'm sorry. Like, if somebody was trying to shoot my husband, maybe. But like, if I found out my husband was cheating on me, no, I'm going to take the money and I'm going to tell him he can have her. That's how that's going to go. But if I found out somebody was messing with my child, I think I might have the same reaction the sheriff did when it came to the judge. So I want to thank you again. Oh, Solistic Glow, I'm sorry. Solistic Glow says the sheriff's demeanor is very interesting. Also reacted to the questions, and he is not sweetening this. And Solistic Glow says he thinks he knows he has a case for what he did. Yep, I agree. I want to thank you guys for being here. I hope you all have the best day you've ever had in your whole entire life. If you're watching this on a replay, thank you for being here. And I will see you guys again, definitely Saturday, possibly tomorrow. It will really just depend on what time I get back and if there's anything real important that I think I need to go live on. So I will end with the song. I didn't start with the song. I just kind of jumped right in. So we'll listen to a song, or I'll play a song, and I'm going to go ahead and go. Y'all have a good day. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope to see all of your lovely screen names again soon. Bye.
picture